What's going on, everybody? Welcome to HBCU Game Day. I am SJG, and guys, please do me a favor. Go ahead and hit the like button, and it's a small thing that goes a long way for the channel, so definitely appreciate everybody who does that. And let's get down to business while we're here. We had some big news to come out on Monday, really huge news that we've been waiting on, and it is now officially unofficial that the CIAA tournament will not be going back to Charlotte, North Carolina, and will be returning to Baltimore, Maryland. Now, that news was broken on Monday by the Charlotte Business Journal. I believe the reporter's name is Eric Spanberg. You know, we definitely know how important it is when you break those stories to be able to give credit to the folks who do that. So shout out to him for the work that he does. He's a great reporter down there in Charlotte, and he's got a lot of resources. He's plugged into the business community, obviously, and so he was alerted on Monday. He put out his report on Monday, and then we went ahead and confirmed it with the source as well. And so, yes, the CIAA tournament will not be going to Charlotte. If you will recall, earlier in the year, I did my interview with Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott. Please go check that out if you haven't already, where he and I talked about, you know, that they wanted to continue to keep the CIAA in Baltimore. Of course, it had previously been in Charlotte from 2006 all the way through 2020, and Charlotte also put in a bid as well. Now, if you remember, the bids that the CIAA was seeking were from the years 2027 through 2029. But if you also, again, following the reporting that, you know, others as well as ourselves have been doing, Charlotte actually put in a bid for 2028 through 2030. So kind of already starting off on a bad foot. You kind of already put itself at a disadvantage. But there were a couple other things that are going on there in Charlotte. The ACC tournament is going to be there 1 year. And so that actually was going to push the tournament not to keep it away from being uptown. And if you know anything about the CIAA tournament over its years, it really came to Charlotte and flourished uptown. The last couple years, they had actually sent the first couple of rounds over down the road to what is now known as Bojangles Coliseum, the old school Coliseum, right off of Independence Boulevard, a much less desirable location, far away, a little bit further away from everything. And, you know, that had been a point of contention previously, and it remained a point of contention to the point where I'm told that was one of the big reasons why this bid was not going to happen, was not going to be accepted. You know, at the end of the day, Bojangles Coliseum is a smaller, older Coliseum, and frankly, for the CIAA, it just was not the best. It was not they felt, from what I understand, that they felt that was not the best that the city of Charlotte could offer. And so also there were the issues with the hotels. Again, in the previous day, you know, getting hotels in Charlotte for CIAA was crazy. And so they wanted to combat that and not have that be a situation moving forward. And the Charlotte Region Visitors Association was not able to meet those demands. So it will be back in Baltimore. Let me know in the comments whether or not you think this is the right move. In the meantime, we also got a statement from the CRV. So it's only HBCU Game Day. I'll read a little bit of it here, and then we'll go read some responses. You know, we've been informed by the CIAA that Charlotte will not be considered as the host city for the upcoming tournament cycle. While this is not the outcome that we had hoped for, we are proud for the strong collaborative bid submitted by the city of Charlotte, the CRVA, and the Charlotte Sports Foundation. So, you know, the stories on HBCU Game Day, you know, they said that they requested 2027 dates in early 2020. When the CIAA requested those dates, the key venues were already booked due to prior commitments. The ACC tournament will be returning to Charlotte in 2029, which is the year that they were trying to put the CIAA in Bojangles Coliseum. So they pleaded their case. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the CIAA's tournament. It's the CIAA's bid. They announced a decision to move to Baltimore back in 2019. Now, we were actually the first ones to break that. Just got to put that out there. Since that, announcement was made where it was kind of a big shock. There has been discussion, debate, arguments, damn near fighting words between people who are proponents of Charlotte and people who are proponents of Baltimore, or pretty much anywhere else than Baltimore. And so with that news, the news that came out on Monday, that didn't do anything to cut that out. If anything, it just kind of fired it up again. So let's go to our comment section over on our Facebook page, and we got a lot of engagement there. So we'll just go. So we'll go with some of these. Mike Bowman said, never mind the fact Charlotte just lost a bid, which was expected, but only 2 cities bidded for the CI. Just 2. Interesting. Well, that is a fact. Only 2 cities bid. That is Charlotte and Baltimore. There are, in my estimation, my personal estimation, and some others as well agree with this, there are several cities in the region of the CIAA, right, which starts at Pennsylvania technically, but right, really pretty much Maryland down to now it is South Carolina. And you're never gonna hear me say the Carolinas. We're 2 different Carolinas. So yeah, South Carolina though, with Claflin being there, but mainly historically Maryland to North Carolina, and heavily in North Carolina. To me, North Carolina, Virginia. To me, there are 3 cities that are potentially there, and that would be Greensboro. We've seen what they've done with the ACC women's basketball tournament, as well as the ACC men's basketball tournament. And actually, the CIAA was there even before we got there. But I think they're a place that knows how to host a tournament. If you wanted to have that, the argument is for a lot of people that the CIAA is a league that most of its teams are based in North Carolina, which is correct. If you wanted to say a city outside of North Carolina, you would say maybe Greensboro. It's a good central location, right down the road from Winston-Salem State, just up the road, just up at I-85 from Johnson C. Smith and Livingstone, and not too far from the Raleigh School, because right now St. Aug is not in the league. And then also you have Fayetteville, so it's not a bad place. Even in another location as well that the CIAA has previously been is Raleigh. Raleigh had the tournament from 2001 through 2005. The tournament actually grew there a lot after it left Winston-Salem. But Raleigh, the issue with Raleigh, from my understanding and from everybody, and just from the pulse of everyone, is that it's a little bit far from the hotels for the most part. I did see that they are making a new hotel situation in Raleigh that's a little bit closer to where the current, I believe it's PNC. Is it PNC now? The arena over there changes all the time, but where NC State plays. And so Raleigh is another place that's a good location. They have an arena, but it's kind of far. And then you've got Richmond. Richmond is a place where the CIAA again has been as well. Historically, back in the 80s and 90s, when they had more CIAA teams in Virginia, Hampton and Norfolk State were still in the CIAA at that time. It's a pretty good central location, right on 95, 85, so not too far for those schools in North Carolina that are right on there. But, their problem there is the Richmond Coliseum is old and they got to get an arena. That arena is just not acceptable. And so, anyway, that's kind of what we discussed there. But again, this is a sentiment from a lot of people, so let me get to some of these comments. Charlotte didn't want us. Yes, Baltimore. I'm a North Carolinian, and that my desire is for it to stay in Baltimore. The people only went there to party day and night. It was evidence showing the people who came to the games. Very few film shows the proof Baltimore is a better place. Calvin Charlotte says it. Charlotte didn't want it back. Baltimore showed it wanted more. Nicole Smith says, the whole time I lived in Charlotte, there was little to no coverage on the news or welcoming to the city. The first 2 years I kept saying Charlotte wasn't ready. Then they announced the money we brought in, here they come. Nah. Jewel Rivers says that she lived in Charlotte most of her life and graduated from high school in 92 and attended WSSU and recalls the news coverage. There was some price gouging and other issues going on, but lack of news coverage was never an issue here. That's a good point. That is a topic that I don't think comes up enough when people are having a discussion about CIAA, and that is media coverage. And I do think that there was plenty of media coverage, and I do think early on in the CIAA, when the CIAA came to Charlotte, there was mostly positive because about the economic impact, and it was new and it was fresh and all of this stuff, and they were setting actually attendance records when they first got to Charlotte. However, at a certain point, the narrative began to shift. And I will say this because I worked at a TV station in Charlotte while the CIAA was there. And the narrative after a while went from this great basketball tournament, it kind of talked about the economic engine, but what they started hinging on was the extracurricular activities that had absolutely nothing to do with the CIAA. And I'm talking about the Young Dolph, all that stuff that was, the things that had nothing to do with the actual CIAA or actual CIAA events or actual CIAA schools. Those are the things that they began to focus on because if you know anything about media, right, again, by this time it's click-based and the sensationalization of perceived violence, these influx of the city. These people were coming to invade uptown, and what kind of extravagance were you going to see? And they began to sensationalize the CIAA. Also, talking, and really kind of smearing it in a myriad of ways. And again, as someone who's been to the CIAA every year that has been in Baltimore, I haven't seen any of that. If you go and you search CIAA and you look at the news coverage that it's gotten in Baltimore over these last 4 years, you've not heard any of this type of coverage about the violence or it's just, there's a whole different tone and tenor of the media coverage that's there. And of course, again, as a journalist, mass communications grad, and of course, HBCU Game Day. These are the things that I pay attention to. And this is something that has been clearly, obvious to me. So very good point, when you talk about media coverage. Let's see here. So, yeah. All right. So back to the comments. Tamara Washington says some of the best years for the CIAA were in Raleigh, minus the parking. So again, there's Raleigh is like almost perfect for it, but then not quite. Here's an interesting point of discussion. I don't think the conference should lock in with any city for more than a 2-year cycle. Is the conference really even making a profit, or is it breaking even? Yeah, let's see. Erica Rochelle, friend of the show, says, yay, we love having you here in Baltimore. Let's see. Gary Williams says, I've enjoyed working with the CIAA while I was in Baltimore. Hope I can do it again. Baltimore deserves it. It's been a blast, and they have honored the HBCU basketball culture. Eric Ray says he'd like it in Fayetteville. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a fan of Fayetteville. I'm just not. It's got nothing to do. I just don't like Fayetteville personally. But beyond that, it's Fayetteville. No. Fans never came to games. Greensboro would have been better. Again, I think Greensboro there's potential there, but Jamal Govan says, this makes me happy. Now let's see Charlotte try to pimp the ACC. There's a thought. There's a conversation to be had there. Let's see. We'll just roll through a couple of these. We had a lot of comments, of course. Someone says, I will admit I was upset it wasn't in the South in Charlotte because folks had a good time there, but I also realized the powers that be in Charlotte probably don't want all those black folks back. So intentionally, they made it impossible to have a competitive bid with Baltimore. Go Baltimore. Terrence Graves, who is the head coach over at Southern University, but he also is an alumnus of Winston-Salem State University. So shout out to the Ramblin'. He says, well, I guess no CIAA for me for a long time, anywhere but Baltimore. I sure hope Baltimore does more financially for the schools. If not, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, you're hearing from people who are from Charlotte too. Ebony in Wilson Howard says, oh, well, my city didn't appreciate CIAA when we had it. And I think the headquarters is still in Charlotte too. And yes, the headquarters is still in Charlotte. There's a lot of affirmation that Charlotte doesn't need. Shout out to my guy Randall Calloway with the nippy GIF. Let's see. Keeping it real, Baltimore. Keep it where it is, Baltimore. We're ready. Deion Taylor, I know she's a Charlottean as well. She's at Smart Move CIAA. So, again, as we round out the discussion here, and you guys, you let me. And so, again, as we round out the discussion, you guys let me know in the comments what you think, where you think the best situation for the CIAA is. If you think that Charlotte should have been the choice over Baltimore, and let me know if you ever attended a CIAA game. There's that part. So, this discussion has not gone anywhere, will not go anywhere. And, it'll continue. It's definitely still going on in our Instagram comments. Those are a little bit less family friendly. So we'll just let you pop in on those if you want to. But again, let us know what you think. But right now, the news is the CIAA will not be coming back to Charlotte, at least through the end of this decade. And it will remain in the city of Baltimore. So personally, I think that this is a good move for the CIAA. Charlotte didn't give the CIAA what it asked for. It gave it what, I'm not going to say they gave it what they felt that it deserved, but they didn't give it what it asked for. So at the end of the day, any negotiations like that, you're going to kind of have your hands tied behind your back. I like the enthusiasm that I've seen from the city of Baltimore start to finish. Again, check out my interview with Mayor Brandon M. Scott. I'm going to definitely have to make sure that I get him on my podcast, Verified Sources, which you guys, if you hadn't checked out my first interview with Reginald Ruffin, please go check that out. Very good stuff there. But his passion for the city of Baltimore, what he's doing over there, just overall is amazing, helping bring the crime down and really making a change there and keeping the CIAA there. Pretty much every night of the tournament for the most part since it's been there, I've seen him there. I've seen him there with his family being engaged, and I believe even in during the last CIAA, he had a child born, but he was still, being there and making sure that he was fulfilling his duty as the mayor. The thing about Baltimore versus Charlotte, and I can say this as a native North Carolinian, a graduate of Winston-Salem State University, which has a lot of Charlotte representation, and a former resident of Charlotte. The city of Charlotte is a multicultural city in its demographics, and black folks are not the majority there. They do have a lot of power. The current mayor is black, but it still has some of that good old boy Southern mentality that we have to battle with. And even though, Maryland is technically in the South, it's a much more progressive state in general. And then you add in the city, again, itself, unapologetically black. Again, its mayor feels comfortable saying that Baltimore is a black city. And as much as Charlotte has grown and, black folks with mobility continue to move to Charlotte and build it up, I don't think that you're going to get to have that same type of comfortability with it being a black city. And so I think, again, so far, it's been a really great match for the CIAA. I don't know that you ever wanted to stay in a place as long as it did in Charlotte, and maybe that's a little bit of it as well. But it's going to be very interesting. I would like to have seen more cities bid on the CIAA. I would like to see Richmond get together and bid on the CIAA, but again, they have to build an arena, which, in these days where folks are looking to cut stuff, I don't know how feasible that's going to be. Look at Raleigh. They've got their challenges as well. Greensboro, I think, come on, Greensboro, I think that there's, something to potentially be made there. It's not Charlotte, but it is in North Carolina. And again, a lot of the schools are based there in North Carolina. I get that argument for sure. I would love to have it in here in the Triad. Not only would it be economical, but it would also be a great home situation for, certain schools that wear red. But, you know, it's neither here nor there. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you made it this far in the video, you're really invested in this topic, or you just like hearing me talk. Either way, I appreciate you guys. Please continue to support HBCUGameday.com first and foremost. Continue to support this YouTube channel, and then my podcast, Verified Sources, on here. Let me know if there's some folks you want me to talk to, and where we go from there. So, you know, just really want this to be some folks who are making waves in the HBCU community, sports and beyond sports. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.